concludes our music. Thanks, Allison, for providing the music as always. Why don't we go ahead and kick off the recording and let's get started. And while we do that, let's everyone make sure your reactions work. So maybe give some thumbs up, maybe give a applause, maybe laugh, or give a surprise look or hearts. Let's just make sure those reactions work. So let's, if you can, just let the presenters know what's useful as we go through this throughout the day. My name is Steve Wynn. I am a Principal Program Manager with the Viva Engage Product and Engineering team. And I'm happy to be joined by Shreya, Mike, and Spencer. They're three of our illustrious product managers that work on various admin-related capabilities. They'll go through some of those things as we go along today. But we're really excited for you all to join us today. And we did call this Monday Masterclass, and we do realize that for many of you, it's probably Tuesday. So we didn't want a good alliteration to get in the way of our sessions here. So apologies if it's not Monday for some of you. We do appreciate that we operate across many time zones and our customers are in a lot of different places. Regardless, we're just happy that you're here to spend time with us and learn a little bit more today about Viva Engage admin and governance. We'll talk about some of the future sessions if you're not aware of some of those, but we're excited for this series of sessions that we have in store for you here. Really, as we think about what Viva Engage is for our customers, largely it's really a place for employees to be able to come together and connect, share news, share knowledge, share information across their organization. And when we've talked with a lot of our customers, there's a couple of really key things that they've really focused in on and that we really tried to build this product to support some really key scenarios. The first of which is really to enable your leaders to really connect with employees across the organization. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about this, but really we hear a lot from our customers that leaders want to know what's top of mind for employees, and employees want to know what's top of mind for leaders, and really to help facilitate that two-way dialogue across with leaders and employees in your organization. For many of you that might be corporate communicators, we know that Engage is a key aspect, a key element to reaching employees across many different parts of your organization. Communities has always been a bedrock of what previously Yammer and now Engage is. People come together for communities for a lot of different reasons. It could be employee interest groups, it could be a community of practice, it could be a lot of things. And we want to continue to support that ability for you to bring employees together through community to do things like the third thing, which is share knowledge. Over time, we've seen many of our customers use Engage as a way to be able to share knowledge, share the breadth of knowledge that might exist across the organization. A lot of times we say when you don't know the answer to something, Engage is a great place to go to really crowdsource that knowledge, connect with experts, connect with expertise, and really we aim to help make people more productive by being able to find knowledge more quickly through Engage and increasingly through other surfaces like Search and Copilot and so forth. So those are some of the reasons why we focus on this product. Those are some of the reasons why we build specific capabilities overall to support our customers. But today, like I said, we're going to be focused on a specific area around admin and governance. And whether you're brand new to Engage, which we know there are many of you out there that might be in that state, and you want to just understand some of the basics around setting up your network for success, that's what this session is for. In some cases, there might be some of you here that are just here for a refresher, or maybe you just like us and you just want to hang out with us, that's totally fine too. But we want to really use this session to help you understand some of the foundational elements of setting up your tenant, everything from admin roles to Microsoft 365 groups, and Spencer will talk about some of the key moderation capabilities that you have at your fingertips. I'll talk about integration across Microsoft 365 and analytics. So some really great concepts for you to dig into today, which, by the way, we wrestled with having this be a 60-minute session or a 90-minute session. We actually wanted this to be a 90-minute session, just so we have some time to go deep on some of these things and really make sure we give time for some of these areas. Sometimes we have these sessions and it's a compressed 60 minutes and we have to rush through a bunch of things. So we did schedule this for 90 minutes. We may or may not take the full 90 minutes. Again, some of it depends on the questions that you all ask, and it's totally fine. Please ask questions as we go. But again, we wanted to make sure that there's enough time to get through some of these things without these feeling rushed. As we go through, a couple of other wayfinding things before we get started. Number one is up in the top navigation, up where you would normally access chat or maybe raise your hand, you might see that Q&A button. It might have a red dot next to it if you haven't read any of the Q&A. But if you have a specific question, please use that Q&A tab to type your questions. We'll prioritize in answering questions that come through the Q&A tab above things that come through chat. We'll certainly try to respond to things in chat, but please continue to use chat for just comments and feedback that you might have. But if you have a specific question, please use the Q&A tab, and that's what we use to optimize answering questions as we go through. We'll do our very best to try to answer as many questions as we can. The morning session, the Q&A was on fire, and we had a hard time keeping up with all the great questions that came up. But we'll do our very best to try to answer as many questions as we can. We also Allison posted the link to the blog post. We'll probably go back and put any unanswered questions in that blog post just to capture them later on. The other thing is at the bottom of this slide, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a licensing key. So we know here in this call, we likely have a mix of people. We have a mix of folks that are using Engage, using just our Microsoft 365 licensed capabilities. We also might have some of our customers that are on this call that are licensed for some of the what we would refer to as the Engage Premium or Viva Suite or Communications and Communities licensed customers, meaning you may have acquired additional licenses for the Engage Premium capabilities. So as we go throughout this session, you'll notice that some things may be denoted with this circular icon, meaning that's a capability specific to Microsoft 365 customers. And then in some cases, you'll see this Viva icon indicating that these are capabilities that are available to those that do license what we call CNC license going forward. If something's not clear, please feel free to ask a question. We're happy to answer if something's not clear, if something you're not sure which license is which, please don't hesitate to ask those questions as well. So with that, we're going to start by talking about our Engage admin roles. And Shreya is going to walk through some of the basics and just what you need to know about the existing admin roles, how you can apply them, who they apply to, and so forth. So Shreya, tell us a little bit more about the Engage admin roles.
Oh, sorry, I just had to come on mute. Thank you, Steve. So as Steve mentioned, the first session is more towards understanding the various admin roles within Viva Engage, understanding which is the most powerful role that we have within our application, and then the lesser privileged ones, more focused towards content management. So the infographic that you see towards the right side of the slide helps explain the hierarchy. So at the top, we have the global admin role, which is essentially the administrator role for all of Microsoft 365 services. We've noticed that our customers have very few of the global admin roles assigned. The reason is because it's also a very privileged role, so they tend to keep it to a minimal number. Right after the global admin is the Engage admin role. So the global admin tends to assign an Engage administrator. You'll also see this being called as the Yammer administrator role in Entra ID. But this role essentially is responsible for all of management of Viva Engage. We'll talk through what each of these roles can do in a bit. But for now, a good context to keep in mind is that Engage administrator is sort of like the god of Engage. They can do anything and everything within the Engage application. So right after the Engage administrator is the verified admin and the network admin roles. The verified administrator and the network administrator roles are essentially specific to Engage again, and they can be assigned within the Engage Admin Center. And right after the network administrator are two roles more focused towards content management, which is corporate communicator and the community administrator role. Now, to speak about what each of these roles are, what are their permissions, where can they be assigned, so on and so forth. So, we'll get started with the engage admin and the verified admin role. The engage admin role, like I said, is an M365 Entra ID backed role. So, the engage admin is typically assigned by the global admin within the M365 admin center. We tend to see customers again having a limited number of users on this role given the high privilege. And another tool that's being used for this role assignment is the PIM, which is private identity management, where essentially you can go in and assign this role to a user for X number of hours or X number of days on a need basis. And this role takes care of everything around governance and compliance and Engage. So, be it the data export or monitor keywords. They also take care of enabling and disabling features in Engage. And all other network admin privileges as well. So, this is a very privileged role, as you can see. And given that it's an Entra ID backed role, they can also perform M365 group management activities, um, which is a significant difference between the engage admin and the verified admin role. So the way to look at it is the verified admin role has all capabilities as that of an engage admin, just that the verified admin is more particular within engage and does not have the same M365 group management capabilities as the engage admin does. So that's with the engage admin and the verified admin role. Right after that, or right below that, we have what we call as the network admin role. The network admin role, as the name suggests, is sort of the admin of the entire network for Viva Engage, particularly. They can perform activities around again enabling or disabling features in Engage, but they're mostly focused around like setting up the network for success with respect to the application, right? So you can see them configuring usage policies for the network, um, going in and setting up reporting conversations, or even just enabling different conversation settings, right, for the entire network. One of the other key permissions that this role tends to see is they can manage users like muting users or view only mode. And oftentimes you have the engage admin or the verified admin assigning users to the network admin role within the engage admin center again. So it's a role very specific to engage and more around configuring the entire network. And moving on, we have the lesser privileged admin roles, which are more focused towards content and community management. So, a role that's more focused towards the content management would be the corporate communicator role. So this is a role that's again assigned within the Engage Admin Center. It's assigned by a network admin or a verified admin or any other user who's already a corporate communicator. And as I said, it's more focused towards content management. So you can see this role being used for purposes around identifying leaders and audiences to manage the various content strategies within the network, marking community as official, or even muting conversations as needed. Assigning this role or the user being given this role is actually like a basic M365 license privilege. So everyone who has a basic M365 license can be given this role. I do want to say that the some of the features that this role can access, like creating campaigns or viewing campaign analytics, is more pertinent towards the Viva suite or the Viva CNC SKU. But the assignment of this role in itself is available for all M365 licensed users. And right after this would be the community administrator role. So this is again a role that's more focused towards content management, but think of it as content management within the community. So it's got to do everything within a community. Again, community administrator is a role that is available for all M365 licensed users. And in fact, whoever creates a community ends up becoming a community administrator. They can perform various things within the community, like going and, you know, managing the membership of the community, managing other community admins, or even setting experts, or even making the community private or public, right, depending upon their strategy. And they can also introduce or assign community experts, so on and so forth. This community administrator role also helps in moderation and content management within the community, so they can pin conversations, feature conversations, or even like edit, delete, and close conversations, right? And in instances where they have like the Viva Suite or the Viva CNC premium plans, they can also manage community campaigns, which are more restrictive inside the community. So, hope this was a useful breakdown of the various admin roles we have within Engage. With that, I'm handing this over to Mike.
Great. Thank you, Shreya. And just as we transition into the next section, Allison did put up a poll for you all, so if you wouldn't mind and just helping us understand a little bit about your admin setup. Not a lot of questions so far, which must mean you were super crisp and super clear, Shreya, as always. Thank you so much. Actually, there is one question. Can we configure a community administrator not to delete a community?
So, can you configure a community admin? I believe there is no way to restrict a community admin from not deleting a community. Um, so I guess that answers the question, Steve.
Yeah, maybe if Samasundaram, if maybe if there's a little bit more detail you can provide, and maybe in the chat, just why this might be needed. We're actually going to go into the next section where we talk a little bit more about things like group exploration and some group policy content. So maybe some of that will help you a bit. But so let's transition into that a bit more. And Mike is going to talk a little bit more about Microsoft 365 groups and Viva Engage communities. As you might know, all communities in Microsoft 365 groups or all communities in Engage are supported by Microsoft 365 groups. So it gives you a bunch of advantages, especially from an administrative perspective. Mike formerly worked within our Microsoft 365 groups team, so has a lot of background in this space. So happy to turn it over to Mike and his expertise here.
Great. Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks so much, Shreya. You did a great overview of our admin roles. Now that we've covered the types of roles available and what's required to manage Viva Engage, we'll go deeper into the Viva Engage communities and how they've been built with Microsoft 365 groups and the value that they provide. So very frequently we get the question, well, what is a Microsoft 365 group and why did Viva Engage build on this construct? So at the end of the day, the Microsoft 365 group is the entity inside the Entra ID directory that really manages all the membership information. When you create a Viva Engage community, you have a set of owners, you also have a set of members, right? And each of those sets of users, they fulfill, a certain role inside that community. And so the Microsoft 365 group gives you a central place to define that membership and manage that across the system. This group, it's the same exact group that backs any team created in Microsoft Teams, any group that's provisioned with Outlook, or any team site provisioned in SharePoint. Now, this group construct in the directory was built to really help streamline some of the permission management. If we think back to the old days when you created a community, if you added a list of members and then you needed a SharePoint site to collaborate on some documents or share some files, you had to add everyone in the community, then you had to go add everyone to the SharePoint site. It was a multi-step process. Well, today when you provision the Viva Engage community, we automatically create that SharePoint site, and Microsoft 365 groups automatically assigns those permissions across the suite. That means your users can transition pretty easily. If they go to SharePoint, they already have access to those documents. If they're viewing images or anything uploaded to a conversation inside Engage, they already have access, which is great. So this really saves a lot of time for our admins and really improves the overall lifecycle management. Your admins might start thinking through, how long should these communities live? Is there a particular period in time where a community admin should reattest that they're still being used and that they're still valid? When these life cycles are defined, they can be applied to every resource across your system that uses Microsoft 365 groups. So we'll talk a little bit more about what's available in a little bit. But a lot of the investment in the directory around the expiry process, naming policies, and things like that get applied directly to Viva Engage. So what does this do? So it really enhances the teamwork that we offer through Viva Engage and the rest of the suite. Provides one centralized point of access for all the resources that are provisioned, whether it's a SharePoint site or a Plan and Planner or Group and Outlook. And this really just helps put those tools at our users' fingertips much more quickly. So when we step back and think about the scenarios where our users see the biggest benefits from Microsoft 365 groups, they kind of land on a spectrum from more structured communities to less structured communities. Now on the left side here, we have an example of organizational communities. These are communities that might reflect the membership or the structure of a department, a division, maybe all employees that report up to a certain leader, or all employees that meet a certain criteria. Maybe they reside in a certain geographic location. So these communities, like I said, are a little more structured. You might want to ensure that all employees that, let's say, work out of the West region are members of a community, and so membership might be required. And so Microsoft 365 Groups supports the ability to assign members to this community or pull them in dynamically if they meet that criteria. The group construct also supports a couple different ways to expose the content that you see inside your Viva Engage community. For these communities, you might not want people to see the content unless they're a member. If this is specific to your organization, you might be discussing where we're focusing the next fiscal year or the upcoming quarter. And so the group allows you to say, hey, this is private unless you're a member. And on the other side, you might have a group where it's perfectly fine to see that content, and that's why users are able to browse and then decide whether they want to join that community. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Some examples of these organizational communities might be everyone in your organization who needs to receive news and updates, or like I said, everybody in a certain geography. Now, a slightly less structured community might be support and shared services community. Here, you might have reason to provide information to employees that meet some criteria. Perhaps you need a way to answer questions at scale related to like immigration. We have a community like that at Microsoft for question and answer. It's pretty active. You might also have a certain department like human resources that needs to be able to provide answers that for questions that a lot of people might ask. And so these could be marked as official communities that are supported by your company. There's a way to label that, which is great. And again, you have the choice to make these private or public. So now on the less structured end, we have things like communities of practice. Okay, so here we might have community available for all new hires at Contoso. If they're brand new and they're learning a lot and they've just entered the industry, they might have a lot of questions. They can leverage the knowledge of others. Here, you're not only trying to get answers from an expert, but also perhaps from your peers, right? So you're kind of going up and down and across. Or it could be for a certain domain like marketing, sales, engineering, etc. Now, some of the communities that we see which generate the most usage are actually non-business related. So you might have communities of special interest that are related to foodies, at Contoso, where people are sharing recipes and dining and other ideas. And these types of communities help employees build those weak ties across the organization, where you can meet folks that you wouldn't have otherwise worked with. At Microsoft, one of our favorites is Dogs at Microsoft, where people can share pictures of their pets. Everybody likes to jump in there, and it's just it's a great break throughout the day. And like I said, it kind of introduces you to a different set of people. So now as your organization is moving forward and deploying Viva Engage, and employees are then creating communities, sponsoring these, becoming community admins, and leadership is getting involved, lots of times admins start asking, okay, well, how do I manage this set of communities at scale? What tools are there that are available? So what I'll do now is I'm going to actually flip over to the product, and I'm going to walk you through how to set up some group expiry at scale. Then we'll talk about the membership and show you some of those examples. And as I walk through that, we have slides I can come back to that have those instructions, so you don't need to worry about capturing them on the fly. We'll share them afterwards. We'll kind of show you how these all come together. So I'll stop presenting, and let me share my window. Okay. I think we should be good now. Okay, great. See a lot of thumbs up. That's perfect. So just briefly, in my Engage experience, I just have a short list of communities here. I'll spend most of my time in the Azure portal, actually, where these can be configured. But I have a community that looks at my org structure, another one for new employees, another one for product managers, and we'll kind of touch on these as we walk through the management scenarios. So now as an Engage admin, I have access to come over here to the Azure portal, and I can just navigate to portal.azure.com. There's a lot of different resources and functionality here in Azure, but for communities and the group aspects, we're going to stick with the Microsoft Entra ID. So here's where I would see my list of users, groups, a lot of different things that I can configure, right? So I'm going to navigate into groups. Now, I have my full list of groups available. I'll show that in a minute. But from a configuration perspective, like I said, there's a lot of investment being poured into the Entra ID and how we can manage these groups. You will be able to define things like naming policies. You can restore deleted groups. I'm not going to go into everything today, but just know that all those investments accrue to Viva Engage. Okay. So what I will show is how to create this expiration policy. So here, underneath the expiration tab, as an admin, I can decide how long and how many days I want a group to exist before it has to be renewed. So this means after a certain point in time, my group owners, which for Viva Engage are my community admins, will receive an email saying, hey, is this community still being used? If so, renew it. Okay. Some of our communities and groups, they have a finite lifespan. That might be for a conference that was planned, occurred, and now it's done. Some might be perpetual, and that's great that you can continue to renew those. But those emails will go out, and here I've specified 180 days. There's a couple different options as well as a custom. And my owners will start receiving emails 30 days before expiration and 15 right before it actually expires. Now, when it expires, there is a soft delete period where it could be restored, but this notification will start to go out. Now, if a group does not have any owners, we have a place to specify who should receive those emails. And here I've added my admin email address. One pro tip is that a lot of customers will create a group email address and put that in there. So if you have a group of 10 admins, you might send that to the group. So if someone's on leave or on vacation, the renewal isn't missed and someone else can pick it up. And then at that point, you kind of realize, oh, this community doesn't have any owners, and you can go designate someone. So it's better moving forward. Now, the last thing you would configure for group expiry is the list of groups. So here there's 3 options. You can assign it to all groups in your entire directory, which is fine. Every owner for every group would get a renewal email. Or you could do selected, where you specify a specific list or none. And so earlier today we had a question, well, is there a way to apply this just to Engage communities? Well, and not teams. So if you had a particular group type you wanted to omit, that's fine. Just don't add them to the list. And here, when you click add, you have access to all the groups that have been created in your system. So you have the ability to pull any of these in. And so here I've added a couple that are related to some communities that I provision. So this is how you'd walk in, and set up your group expiry policy. It's pretty straightforward. So now we'll take a look at a couple of groups and how their membership is defined.
Real
So
quick, before
here,
you move on from that, Mike, just a quick question. So on the expiration, it is activity based, right? So especially for engaged
right.
communities, right? It's, I think, a lot of our customers, they want to sort of curate and this will help automate some of that. If there's no activity in a given community, meaning no views, no posts, no reactions in that community, that counts as activity or lack of activity. right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because actually the Engage team did a lot of engineering work to plug into that expiry auto renewal process. So if there is activity happening, it gets renewed automatically, which is nice. So this is for those communities that wouldn't see activity for a period of time. Yep. Great. So here, like I said, we'll take a look at a couple of groups that are supporting engaged communities. One thing I'll highlight here is when the engaged community is created, we also provision a SharePoint site automatically, right? So it's there for the members. And here inside the directory, we understand that this group supports a Viva Engage community. We have a link to the SharePoint site that's mastered with this group, and we have a link to the Viva Engage community. So these are the exact same resources that show up when you navigate to Viva Engage in your web browser or your mobile client or in Teams. And you'll see the same thing for other groups that are provisioned, for other scenarios. Now, this particular group was for new employee onboarding. So I have an assigned membership type here. And we have about 6 or 7 members that we've assigned. So these are new employees that have onboarded. We have a way to communicate with them through Viva Engage, which is great. So now I'll show you a slightly different way to configure the membership for these groups. So like I said, that group had assigned membership. But one of the questions we get as well is there a way to automatically pull in members that meet a certain criteria? And so this group here was created for 2025 giving campaign. And you'll see here we have a different membership type. So here we selected dynamic. So what this means now is I have a set of rules that I can build which allow me to pull in members that meet a certain criteria. So here in the rules, I have access to a pretty long list of out-of-the-box attributes. I can pull in folks that meet a certain criteria, like their job title or location. And there's even a set of extension attributes I can use for custom purposes, which is nice. So here, just to show you an example, I create a simple rule based on job title. Now, if I want to verify that this rule is working as designed, what I can do is pull in a couple of users that I know, might meet this criteria. Let's see if I can pull in Alex as well. And when I add these to my validation, what I can do is just quickly run the validation real time, and I can see, yeah, Alex wouldn't meet this criteria. He doesn't have the right job title, but it looks like Megan does, so she would be pulled in as a member. So here I'm not running the rule on the entire group right now to pull them in. I'm validating this rule, and then what will happen is next couple hours this rule will execute and it'll pull in the right people. So this is one way to make sure that my my community includes a certain set of users that meet a specific set of criteria. Now, the last thing I'll show is a way that we take this just one step further. And out here, I have another group that is designed to reflect like a broader org structure. Okay, so earlier I mentioned sometimes there's these structured groups that might include everybody in a department, or an organization. And sometimes you already have groups set up that reflect those members. And there's a feature here I'll show you that's in preview from the Entra ID team, and it's called the member of rule. So this group is also using dynamic membership rules, kind of like the last one I just showed, but we're using a different rule called member of. So here I have the ability to pull in one level of nesting, where I can say I'd like this Viva Engaged community to include people from my new employee group that I just created because they're brand new and they're onboarding, and all my leaders that are already part of the org, or all my other employees that are already in that division. So what happens is when this rule runs, it'll actually extract those member lists, put them together, and then I have a full set of members that now comprise about 16 or 17 people here. So this is a great win for Viva Engage and the group construct as a whole, because a lot of people have groups that they want to reuse, and now you can do that with the member of clause. Great, so I'll pause there with the demo and I'll switch back to slides, and if there's any questions, we can take those.
This has been a much requested feature, Mike, having these nested memberships. So thanks for showing that, and thanks for showing the preview. Just a couple of questions. I'm sure there'll be some inevitable questions that come up around the dynamic communities, but just going back on a couple of other things. Are the M365 groups for Engage counted against the tenant limitation for how many groups a user can be a member of?
Yes, because yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, they are, and I wouldn't say counted against; they're counted towards. There are actually 3 different group types inside the system. There's security groups, distribution lists, and Microsoft 365 groups. There's a total maximum number because there's a limit on the number of links that you can establish between objects in the directory. So yeah, they count towards that.
Great. It looks like Shreya answered this one in the Q&A also. Can we have different expiration for different groups?
There's one expiration period that can be defined, and then it's really whether it's applied to the groups or not. Yeah.
Is there a way, maybe 1 or 2 more questions here so we can
Sure.
keep moving here, but let's see. Is there a way to stop notifications from going out when creating a dynamic group? For instance, if we had thousands of people in a group. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if Mavina, maybe if you could add a little bit more to your question just to provide clarity. I don't know if you're trying to prevent notifications for a community to go out or.
Yeah, feel free to send some additional info. We can follow up. I know frequently there is a request to delay that like welcome join email when the group's being created because a lot of customers want to have the membership established first, right? And so there are some ways where you could turn off that if that's the notification you're talking about. Yeah, I can send some information offline.
Great, thanks. I'll pick it up from here. Our team will continue to try to answer as many questions as we can in the Q&A. Keep them coming. Thanks, folks, for participating with us. As Mike mentioned, this is just an example of one of the slides that will be available in the takeaway deck here. So should you need to go back and reference how to set up the dynamic communities, for example, that's here as well. Mike, did you want to just wrap up on the best practices here at all?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. Basically, like Steve said, these slides kind of walk through those steps to configure expiry and provide some more context on dynamic membership rules. As far as best practices, I think the key thing is just to have some clear guidance, both for your owners and for your members. This can be displayed in product, like we'll talk about in a little bit, through the usage guidelines, which are supported by Viva Engage. But also, it's very common to have these processes documented somewhere. Usually, there's a corporate communications team that kind of agrees on policies, guidelines. What they recommend is discussed, and then for other topics, whether or not they're included in things like the digests that go out. And really just understanding the roles and responsibilities for community admins / owners and the members themselves. We also have a pretty rich set of reporting tools, both in the M365 Admin Center that Steve will talk about and within Viva Engage that can be leveraged as well.
Hey.
All right, Steve.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, just to build on the topic that Mike was just talking about with regards to the work that you've already done to leverage M365 groups, we want to talk about how you can start to leverage some of those constructs in this next section around setting up leaders and audiences. And I do want to be clear that this specific section is for those of you that might have either the Viva Suite or the Viva Communications and Communities license. So just be aware that these are settings that are available as part of some of the premium Engage capabilities. We created a lot of these capabilities again to help support many of our customers, like I was alluding to up front, that want to create this two-way dialogue with employees and their leaders. And a big challenge that a lot of our customers had is that they had trouble just even identifying or naming who the leaders are within their organizations or within their networks. And so really some of the benefits of identifying leaders in Engage are, again, to create that two-way dialogue, but also to be able to boost leader content in the feed. I'll show you how to define these leaders. And once you do that, when a leader posts, we'll actually boost that leader content higher in the feed so that people in that audience, which is the next benefit, is that leader content is we're able to target the communications from those leaders to the right people based on the audience definitions that you provide to us. So we'll boost it in the feed, we'll make sure it gets in front of the right eyeballs within your organization. And then lastly, we'll help you with some analytics that are focused specifically to that leader and to that leader's audiences. So again, we've heard from many of you, you want to better understand leader activity, leader engagement, specifically what does engagement and activity look like for the audiences that are defined or for the people that are connected to that particular leader. So we'll go into that in a little bit more depth here. So let's go into just a quick demo of how to set up leaders within Engage. So I'm going to go into this network here, and I'm logged in here as Lydia. Lydia is a corporate communicator, and so she has this ability to go to the ellipse, go to the admin section of her network. She can then go to the feature management section here, where she'll see this leadership identification and audience section. This is where she will go to identify, she'll go here to see who the existing leaders that have already been identified in her network are. She can also go here to add new leaders. Adding a leader is super easy. As you start typing a name here, those names will show up. Here in this case, I want to add Karen. I can add her here, and she is added as a leader. So as you can see, the steps to add a leader are pretty easy. Not a lot of thought needed to go into adding a leader itself. A lot of the thought for many of our customers really goes into defining your own criteria for what a leader should be. So we totally leave that up to you all. We've had questions from folks in the past that said, could you use AAD to determine who our leaders are? We could, but we also know that many of our customers, they have their directories are in many different shapes and forms, and it's sometimes difficult to really know who a leader is just based on the directory. So for now, we've left it up to you all to define who the leaders are. Just as a guideline, if it helps for any reason, here at Microsoft, we've put a stake in the ground and said anybody that's a corporate vice president and above is a leader here at Microsoft. So again, totally up to you all to determine what makes sense to be the leader criteria for your organization. Once we've done that, I can click this pencil icon to go into defining the audiences for this particular leader. Now, in this case, Karen is the VP of recruiting, so it makes sense to be able to add her audience being folks that are in HR, people that have things to do with recruiting. So you'll notice that there's already a group here added for Recruiters Connect Worldwide, and we've added some individuals to this person's audience as well. When you go in and you add audiences, just know these audiences are based on existing constructs that you already have in your tenant. So just like Mike talked about M365 groups, you can add a Microsoft 365 group. Maybe it's the new hire group that you just saw that you want for this audience. Maybe it's a distribution list. Maybe Karen already sends a weekly message to a distribution list over email. You can add that distribution list as an audience. It could be an AAD group. So you don't have to worry about creating new constructs for these audiences. You can just use what's already in your tenant to define the audiences for that leader. Now, in some cases, that leader might be some senior level person. Maybe it's a CEO, maybe it's the CFO, and you don't want to go in and add every single M365 group to the audience. In that case, you can just click this toggle, and that'll make the entire organization, every single employee, will become the audience for that particular leader. So that's the easy button if you want the entire organization to be the audience for that particular leader. Now, what are some of the benefits of this? So if I quickly go through and I go to Karen's storyline here, again, I'm logged in as Lydia, and I have the ability as her delegate, which, by the way, each leader or each individual in Engage has the ability to set their own delegates. That delegate can do things like post on behalf of Karen. That delegate can also, if they're a leader, can also see the audience analytics. We'll talk about audience analytics towards the end. But there are some capabilities that delegate has for that leader. So again, one of them being posting. Maybe I want to do an announcement to all the people in Karen's audience on her storyline. I get a little indication telling me how many people are in her audience and how many people are going to receive this message. I can also go in and sort of fine tune this announcement a little bit. If I want to, maybe I want to hit folks in Teams with this message and maybe not email. I could uncheck email, or maybe I want to do both. I want to get maximum reach by sending this to both Teams and email. I can do that as well. So I can go ahead and I can create my message here. I can go ahead and post that. And then once that's gone out, I can see, beautiful, this has been sent as an email. So maybe I'm a person that wants to consume this message over Outlook, and I get this beautiful Outlook rendering where I can consume this message directly in my inbox. I can react to it. I can comment on it directly from here. But maybe I'm a person that prefers to do my work in Teams. I could also, again, get that notification here in Teams, be able to do all the same things that you saw earlier, react, comment on it directly within Teams. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about the integrations, but really one of the things we wanted to do was meet your employees where they're at. If they're a person that likes to use Teams, fantastic. We will provide them a nice notification here where they can consume this message inside of Teams without having to bounce around to a browser. Outlook, same thing. So hopefully this is beneficial for your employees to access inside of Teams and Outlook. The other piece that defining leaders helps you with is this space that we call Leadership Corner. And Leadership Corner is a valuable place for your employees because it allows, what it does is it brings all that leader content into one place, into this Leadership Corner space, and it's tailored to that employee. And it's tailored to that employee based on the leader and audience identification that you did before. So I might sit in maybe the marketing part of this organization, another person might sit in the sales organization. They're going to see two different views of leaders based on how those leaders and audiences are set up. So this is a nice way for an employee to get a tailored view of those leaders, for me to be able to see what's top of mind from my leader. And I don't have to bounce around and check, are they posting in this community? Are they posting in that community? No, we're going to aggregate all that content into this one Leadership Corner space where I can participate in those discussions actively, helping to foster that two-way dialogue that we know many of you desire. So that's how you set up leaders. That's how you set up audiences. Just wanted to talk through some of the benefits of doing that leader and audience identification. Let's just flip over here and just segue a little bit now and talk a little bit more about usage policies. This is one of the capabilities, part of your Microsoft 365 license. So after you've done a lot of the setup that we've talked through here, maybe one of the things that you also want to consider is setting up your usage policy. And the usage policy is helpful in that it helps you define sort of the guidelines for how you would like your employees to interact within Engage. We'll talk about some examples of usage policies in just a moment, but just a couple of specific tactical things that you might want to consider. This first checkbox, require users to accept the policy during sign up and after any changes are made to the policy. So this is typically what we recommend for our customers, and a lot of customers will check that first box so that when employees first join Engage, that they must hit the accept usage policy before they get access and before they can actually participate in Engage. The other one that you might consider is display policy reminder in sidebar. This is if you desire to have the usage policy persistent on the homepage. So you have your logo here on the homepage, and then below it, you can define what this sidebar message is or what this text is below the company logo here. But this is where you can, if somebody were to click on that, they would be taken to the usage policy. So a nice way to keep it in front of your employees and top of mind so they can access the usage policy quickly. Another tip, we have some customers where they require that their employees re-up every year or every 2 years, whatever it might be. They might have to re-accept the usage policy. In that case, a little tip for you that you might consider to do that is you might at the very top of the usage policy just put a timestamp of when the usage policy was last updated. And then when you need employees to re-accept the policy, just change the date. And assuming that you have this check mark, you have this first option checked after any changes are made to the policy, then the next time that person comes to Engage, they'll have to accept the usage policy again. We've also seen instances where In some cases, employees just broadly across the network might just need a reminder about the policy. Again, you could just slightly edit the usage policy, and that will trigger your employees to have to, again, re-accept the usage policy as well. There's a link here that'll be available in the slides if you want to see some examples of some usage policies. For those of you that have access to Copilot, you might also consider using Copilot to help you draft your usage policy. In this case, the prompt is one that is maybe focused on confidentiality. Maybe that's what you want to focus on, the goal of your usage policy being. So you can use that. This one is focused on creating positive interactions within the network. So you can get some really good Copilot drafts of usage policies. Certainly work with your legal team, work with your HR team if you haven't already done so, to make sure your usage policy fits your culture, fits your environment, fits whatever sign-offs you need to have that usage policy be approved. Just some tips and guidelines for you to consider from a usage policy perspective. Okay. Now that we've gone through usage policy, we've gone through a bunch of the admin roles, we've gone through some of the benefits of Microsoft 365 groups and then leaders and audiences. And again, just sort of building off this usage policy piece. Hopefully, all of your employees are maintaining and following along all the guidelines that you set forth for them. In some cases, maybe you need a couple tools in your toolbox to help with moderation and help with some of the activity that's happening in your network. This is where Spencer comes in, and he and the team have been working on many moderation capabilities, a lot of it based on feedback that you all have provided us. So Spencer's going to walk through some of the things that you can consider when it comes to moderating your Engage network. Spencer?
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. And as you say, there's so much great feedback from customers that we've gathered in this space in recent quarters. It's awesome to be here today to talk a little bit more about what we offer and where we're also taking some of the moderation aspects of Engage in the future. So I think the best thing to start with, though, is just as a reminder as around why are we doing moderation? Why is moderation an important aspect of Viva Engage? Really what it comes down to is we look at all of the discussions we've had with customers, we look at our product strategy, is we want to make sure we're fostering environments where everyone can participate. This is a great kind of global evergreen goal for moderation inside of a network. And it's the kind of thing I think that we always need to have in the back of our minds as we are setting up networks, as many of our colleagues here today have shared, or we're looking even at an existing network and we're saying, what can we do a little bit better? How do we drive adoption just a little bit more than we had before? So I think it's really important to remember that as we're looking at the moderation space. The other bit of framing I want to put in front of everybody here is actually a little bit of the thinking that goes into how we develop many of the product aspects of Engage moderation. We call this the hierarchy of needs. And effectively what we look at is what are the core capabilities or the core options that we need to provide to customers and various roles like admins, all the way up through to users, right all the way to the top of the pyramid there, where you see some of our proactive items that are powered by AI that are really trying to scale that impact and reduce that effort. It's important that we think about, well, we have to get the base of the pyramid solved first as we move up that level and really deliver on the potential as well as the needs around moderation. So I think as we kind of go through what's available here, it is helpful to have this in the back of your mind, knowing that for a long time here, we've been focused on areas like configuration, customization, making sure you have the ability to mitigate and triage issues as both admins, corporate communicators, and end users. But we're also taking the product in a more proactive direction from the moderation point of view. And we're going to start leveraging more Copilot powered value to make that even easier than ever. So this is a really exciting time for moderation, and it's really, really important, I think, that we all start from the same page here. And just to finish up here, I think the most important part with moderation is to have these example scenarios again in the back of our minds. I think there's so much in this space that you may think is just, oh, we have to go and stop this from happening, or a problem happened, we have to deal with it. I think the scenarios are actually broader in a lot of cases. Going back to that goal around fostering environments where everyone can participate, we always want to encourage respectful dialogues. We may even just want to monitor and see activity and decide how to best act or amplify information in the network. And then also we want to make sure that there are those reporting mechanisms, those backstops in place just in case something goes wrong. These are the types of scenarios that are also really helpful to kind of game out with your team. Little what if. And using the capabilities that we're about to go through, it may be even easier to do that. As we look at the personas here, we are going to look at 3 buckets. Employees, which effectively is everybody that's not an admin or a corporate communicator role in Engage. And then also we're going to look at some of the capabilities that are targeted at that admin role. We've also done a lot lately in the corporate communication space, and we are going to keep investing in that role and that persona. So some of this here really harmonizes with what Shreya kicked us off with at the top of this meeting. So if we start with employee capabilities for moderation, and again, we're talking about your non-admin and CorpCom user, maybe those are the largest group, for example, in your organization in terms of Viva Engage audiences. Really the most important place to start is the conversation overflow menu. So if this is a conversation in a community and Engage, something I'm sure many of us have seen before, that top right corner where the dots are is what we call the overflow. And in there is really the basic capabilities that are available to employees or end users if they need to do something with their content. They can moderate their own conversations, they can manage discussions, right down to editing maybe what they've said, deleting their content. They can also close their conversations. There are some different options depending on whether you're a delegate or you have one of those unique roles. But again, this is a really important core concept to understand if you're just trying to get the lay of the land, or you want to offer some insight to your end users around what they can do in their own kind of moderation or self-moderation action. And if we bridge from that, if you notice the third option from the bottom is report conversation. And employees can report conversations provided that it's been turned on within the network. And once it's on, they have the ability to write a message as to why they're reporting something that they see. And then that report will go to somebody that you've designated. And we'll talk a little bit about how to set that up in just a moment. But I think it's, again, a really important core capability from an employee's point of view. And it is a nice thing to know that if they do see something across Engage they want to raise a flag about, there is that option to report within the product, or maybe even harmonize with other internal reporting tools that you may have. And I think that's a great segue to actually get into the admin capabilities, because we've talked about what users can do if they do want to report a conversation. And network admins can actually go ahead and decide if they want to set this up for your organization, because it is default off. But inside the admin center, you can go ahead and set it up. You can decide where you want those reports to go. If you want to send them to a shared email inbox, or you also have the option of using communication compliance with Microsoft Purview to get reports done. But I think the big takeaway here is actually the last item on this slide, which is determine a plan of action. It only goes so far to say we're going to turn this on. It really does help to say, okay, well, what do we do with reports? How do we triage them? What types of people need to be involved if we do want to take some action? And again, are there those larger flows within the organization that we need to sync with, whether it's a central reporting line or human resources or something like that? Definitely consider how report a conversation can fit into the landscape, both within Engage and within your broader company. Another really important capability for just general monitoring from the admin point of view is keyword monitoring. Keyword monitoring looks for exact terms and phrase matches based on what you enter into the tool. There's also some documentation that we have that talks a little bit about using regular expressions to do keyword monitoring. And that's another path you can go down if you're interested. But what happens is when the term comes up in conversation and Engage, the email address at the top there gets an email. And those emails actually were just enhanced just before the December holidays. Check those out if you haven't. We've sent a lot of communications out about these new emails. We are constantly trying to make this a little bit better. But in general, I think it's a great tool here because you're able to get that sense of, you know what, there are specific elements in our business that we definitely need to know about if they're coming up in Engage. And so if you look at even the examples here that we have on the slide, you don't always have to put things that are maybe necessarily only in that sort of, I'll just say, negative direction. We have a lot of customers that actually use this tool for tracking information about new products or leaders or any sort of topic that is relevant to your business, because it's a great way to get that tacit feedback pulled together where you can then leverage it in other places. You can say, look, we just came out with that new product and customer feedback was X, Y, and Z. And one of the ways that we actually collected that was looking at conversations with our frontline and Engage. And we used keyword monitoring to actually track when the new product was mentioned in conversations. So I think it's important to think a little bit outside the box with some of these tools, but this is definitely a very core capability that we really encourage people to be familiar with and decide if it's best for them.
Hey, Spencer, I know you're going to tease some ways that we're really going to amp up
Yeah.
this capability later on. But also, for those of our customers that are E5 customers, there is what's called communications compliance as well. We're not going to cover that in today's session just because there's a lot more depth to that. But just know that you can go even beyond keyword monitoring if you're a customer that has E5 using communications compliance.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Great point, definitely. And I think what we'll do now is we're going to actually transition to some of the admin capabilities that are available at the user level. Some of these were referenced actually in Shreya's first part of the presentation. We're going to go a little bit deeper now on the actual capability. But as a network admin, you have the ability to put users on view-only mode or mute the user for the network. View-only mode is a very important capability because it removes the creation privileges, but it does not remove the access. So users can still see everything that they have permissions to do and engage, but at the same time, they aren't able to react, create content. And you can see here, this is what the admin center view is of putting somebody on view-only mode. This is how you go ahead and do that. It's a very similar picker to what you would have seen in the leader section just a few moments ago. And as an employee, this is my experience. So you can see I've got a banner at the top that tells me that I'm on view only mode. And then I'm still going to get those leadership announcements. I can still browse my communities. I can still see everything again that I had the day before, but I definitely can't write a comment or leave a reaction. And I think this is an important thing to have in your back pocket for any sort of scenario where it makes sense to use. And as a complement, they're actually located side by side in the same part of the admin center, is muting a user. If you mute a user, all new posts from that user do not show in the home feed or email digests. They still live in communities, so you can still find them through search and they can still send you notifications, but they really do reduce the visibility of a user's content. And again, it's a good piece of information, just another tool in the toolbox to consider when you're looking at that user management level of how do we need to govern this situation. And I definitely encourage people to be familiar with this feature in concert with what's available in view-only mode.
And Spencer, different than view-only mode, mute user does not indicate to the user that they've been put in that state, correct?
Correct. Yeah, good point, actually. And that's really true for mute user and view only mode as well. There is that banner at the top, but these features don't send any notifications to the affected user either. We really do encourage customers to own all that internal communication and coordination themselves in the event they're going to use one of these features. So now let's also look as a network admin, what you can do at the community level. You have the ability to do some kind of supra powers in terms of how communities are set up. Community administrators have a lot of the same options, but as a network admin, you can also determine things like, is the community going to be restricted? Are we going to make sure that we want to have communities set up in certain ways to deal with moving conversations? A lot of these, like I said, permissions extend to community admins as well, but I think as a network admin, it's important to be familiar with these items because you do have the ability to go in and set these things up over and above what a community admin can do. And as a community admin, you have the similar communication or conversation controls as we showed with end users, but you can always do them on other people's content as long as it's within your community. So it's a slight shift from what we looked at with employees. But again, you have that ability to even do things like pinning a conversation, which is a really powerful way to say, this is important in our community, and I want it at the top of the feed when users open up our community. They'll get this information right off the top. We see it's really common with features like announcements or big moments that need to be celebrated or raising awareness about. Also, as a network admin, you have the ability to mute communities in feeds and digests. When you mute a community in feeds and digests, you are saying, I don't want anyone to see this community in the home feed or an email digest. They have to go to the community to see information about it, or they need to get a notification or find it via search. You can do this for all users. Users can also do it for themselves if they want to govern what they can see a little bit closer. Going back to some of our examples with communities, special interest communities, for example, or communities of practice. Maybe I'm not a dog person, so I'm going to mute the dogs at Microsoft Community, say, for example. Or maybe I'm not a new joiner and I feel like I'm seeing a lot of new joiner stuff, so I'm going to mute that community for myself. It's a really good tool if people are sending you questions about like, why is this in my feed? Or I want to see less of this. This is something, again, to be familiar with as a tool in your toolbox. And finally, on the mute aspect, so we've talked about mute user, we've talked about mute community. Recently, as of November 2024, network admins and corporate communicators can also mute conversations in feeds and digests. So this allows you at the thread level to actually go ahead and say, I don't want this thread in the home feed or email digests. Like all the other mute constructs, it still exists in the community, on a storyline, through search, through notifications, but it's going to reduce the visibility in general of the individual thread. We find this is a great place to either say we've done our analysis and we need to take some action, or you know what, I saw this, I'm not so sure about it, I'm going to mute it, and then I'm going to have a larger discussion maybe with some other people internally, make sure everything's looking the way we want it to, but we want to avoid large distribution while we're still figuring out what to do. So I think this is an important thing, again, to consider from the mute perspective, and it's a really, really important tool. It's relatively new. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely take a look, and I'm happy to take some feedback in the chat too if you have any questions. So finally, now that we've gone through all the capabilities, it's important to maybe say, okay, what are we going to do with all this information? What are some best practices I can take back to my team, to myself, really get my network in shape, apply this new lens with everything that we're learning here. These three buckets are really pulled from all of our conversations with customers in recent quarters, as I said. And we really think that it's helpful for customers to think back and say, okay, what am I actually going to do to get moderation going in my network? Maybe you want to use some heuristics or some benchmarks around, you know what, if conversations are moving at a certain speed, I definitely know that that's something I need to keep a closer look on. Or if I see certain elements of a conversation appear, then I'm going to go ahead and close the conversation for comments, or I'm going to move it somewhere else right away, maybe mute it for everyone. Maybe I have some sample messaging off the shelf I'm going to use just in case I need to remind everybody about our usage policy or other elements that need to keep things on track. This is definitely a good exercise to do as you're kind of looking at your network with this new information in mind. And really get familiar with these 4 core capabilities. We kind of looked at everything and thought, what are the ones that we really want to make sure people kind of take away today? And that is definitely muting communities, getting familiar with setting up report a conversation, using view-only mode if you need to, and understanding that you can always close problematic conversations where you can just say, no more comments, please, folks. This thread still exists, but we're not going to allow anyone to continue to engage with it. And I think that's a great segue to the information that Steve and I were just alluding to, which is there's a lot more coming in the moderation space in calendar year 2025. They really spread out across these 3 buckets. We're going to have a bunch of new capabilities coming out for corporate communicators. We're going to be investing more in proactive value to manage ahead of some of these issues where you can sort of set up some criteria and say, if this happens, I want that to occur. And then finally, we're really investing in themes using AI and large language models to be able to pick out common elements across a slate of conversations and be able to tell you these are all related based on what you're looking for to moderate. And we want you to take this action, or we're going to take this action based on the proactive elements we've already baked into the product. So it's a really exciting time. It all goes back to that reducing effort, scaling impact hierarchy of needs pyramid that we looked at earlier. And I really encourage people to stay tuned via Message Center, the public roadmap, and our engaged customer connection community, as well as you can always reach out to anybody on our product team if you're curious about this. Thank you all so much. This has been great.
Great. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, I'm really excited about some of those AI capabilities that we're bringing. And yeah, if you, maybe Allison or James or Samik, if you can put a link to the customer community for those that haven't or aren't members of that community and would like to join, that's a place where we announce some of these new capabilities. There was a question that I did want to take a moment. Thanks, team, again, for answering a lot of the questions in the Q&A, but there was one that I did want to answer live here, and this is the one from Kirk. He says, when will the ability for a community admin to review and approve posts before they are made visible to everyone in the community? And so, Kirk, this is something that we have considered in the past, and we've gotten some feedback from customers about this in the past. In general, we have not worked on this capability for a couple of reasons. One primary reason is that for a lot of our customers, they've told us that they don't have people that are there to sort of rubber stamp approve these messages when they come through. So that's largely why we haven't done that. And Shreya also mentioned that one of the capabilities we do have is the ability to restrict posts within communities, meaning that you can have the community be that such that you can restrict who can start new conversations in a community, and largely that's been enough for a lot of our customers, especially, like I said, for a lot of our customers just don't have the resourcing to be able to have somebody just review and approve posts for all their communities. So Anything else to add to that, Spencer or Shreya?
I think you've really summed it up well, Steve. It's the kind of thing that we definitely see has some potential. We're still thinking about the how and when and if a little bit, but definitely take the feedback. And if you do feel as a customer you have a real need, I'm happy to have a larger discussion for sure.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on to the next section, which is integration with Microsoft 365. And again, Mike talked about some of the great benefits of Microsoft 365 groups. We want to talk a little bit about just, again, some of what I touched on earlier in how you can make sure that your employees are getting the best access they can to Engage through other surfaces within the suite. So we'll start first of all with Teams, and here's a view of Microsoft Teams here. You notice that on the left rail, we have Engage pinned on the left rail, and we know a lot of our customers will do this so that it gives quick and easy access to Engage. I like to say for many of our customers, you have this great place, in this case, this Contoso. This is a custom logo that's been used for this fictitious organization to be able to connect to their intranet homepage directly from in Teams. So you can do that using Viva Connections here. It's also this great place for one-to-one chats. Certainly you have one-to-many with the teams as well. Or I'm sorry, one to sort of few with the teams that you work with predominantly, and then one-to-many with Engage and Community. So it's a nice place for you to have sort of that one-stop shop for all those things. So I'm going to pop over into how you would do this, how you would pin the Teams app, pin the Engage app inside of Teams. And I'll start by going into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So if you're a
Hey,
global
Steve,
admin.
really quick, while you're doing the demo, will you turn off your video? You're frozen, and maybe try again after you're done demoing.
Sure, thank you.
So you're coming over clear, and your demo looks great. Your video is just frozen. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. So here I am in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and I'm going to go down to the Teams Admin Center here. And once you land on the Teams Admin Center, the place that you want to go is this Setup Policies. Here is where you can set up any number of Teams policies. Here you see one that's for the entire organization, for all employees in your organization. You could set up one that's specific to frontline workers in your organization. So if you want to have a certain ordering of the apps in the app bar for frontline workers, you can specify that. In this case, I'm just going to go into the global section here, and then I'm just going to do add app. Here I can search for it. I'm going to search for Engage. I'm going to choose this Engage app here and add, and there it is. So here it's been, just by default, it puts it at the bottom. Of course, if I wanted to, I could move it up to the top or second or whatever suits your own organization. So that's essentially how you would add the Engage app and have it pinned in the left rail. So I can hit save and hit confirm. I did see a question or a comment earlier in the Q&A around modifying the icon for the Engage app in the left rail. To do that, you would go to Manage Apps. Just search for, in this case, the Engage app. I can click into it here. And there is an option here to customize. So if I click on customize, I can choose what I want this icon to look like, what color I want it to be, what I want to name it, so forth. So that's where you would do that if you wanted to customize it for your own Teams environment. Just know that when you're doing this customization, it's only customizing it for the left rail in Teams. It's not going to change it in the navigation when you're like in the top nav bar and Engage and so forth. So it's only doing it in the left rail of Engage. It doesn't carry through to any other places. Okay, so that's Teams. I'll pop over to Outlook. The great thing about the Outlook integration, and this is a capability that Spencer and team have helped to build over the years and helped to improve over the years. But again, one of the things that we really wanted to do was that when your employees are choosing to get notifications inside of Outlook, that they render in this beautiful, interactive, engaging way. So in this case, Adele has sent a praise to Johanna. I can see that praise. I can see all the hashtags hashtags here. I can react to it directly from here. I can, this GIF would play in line here. If there are any videos, I could play it directly in the body of the message. I can respond to it if I have any. I'm a delegate here, so I can have all my delegate capabilities. So again, the power of this is that you don't have to bounce around and go to a different place. You can actually participate right in the body of the email message itself. Again, no configuration necessary here. We have this integration available across Outlook Desktop, the new Outlook. Some of you might know the new Outlook as Monarch. We also have it on Outlook Web, which is the best experience. So either the new Outlook or the Outlook on the web is where you're going to have the best experience of this. Also, Outlook Mobile, this integration is available as well. Lastly, we know that some of you might be interested in bringing Engage into your intranet or into your SharePoint sites, especially your SharePoint sites or your intranet that is based on SharePoint. So here you see we have a leadership connection page, and down below here we have a web part. We have the Engage web part embedded here on this page. And what we've done in this case is we've brought the feed from a specific community. We have a leadership connection community in which we brought this specific feed onto the page. So one of your employees doesn't, if they land on this page, they can interact directly in the community. They can post right here. They can react to any of the posts here. They can comment directly from here as well. So again, really creating a surface where people can participate in this leadership connection community in the place that they happen to discover it. I'm an admin of this page. I can edit this page, and you can see some of the configuration options here. If I go to the settings, you'll notice that for this particular web part, we can choose, in this case, we have a community feed. And once you choose community, you can choose which community feed you want to show. Leaders, so you can show the leadership feed. Maybe you want to show a specific user feed or a topic. Or maybe in some cases, some of our customers will put this web part right on their intranet homepage. And so when Spencer comes to the homepage, he gets a very personalized view the homepage that shows his home feed, his Engage home feed directly on the page. So a couple other configuration settings here. You can show all conversations. Maybe you wanted to show just the questions from the community. You can choose how many conversations show up on the web part as well. So a number of options for you to extend the conversations from Engage into SharePoint, into your intranet. I'll just pause and see if there are any questions in the Q&A here. Will the in-email interaction also extend to live streams hosted on Engage?
It's a great question. Yeah, for that one, are they referring to like a live broadcast of an event? Oh, James, it looks like James just commented. Yeah, the videos will play in email.
Yeah, you're not going to see a live event in the body of an email, but if somebody attaches a video to an Engage post, you'll be able to play that video in line in the email. Is the Outlook integration automatic or needs to be configured? Yeah, I think I might have addressed that, but yeah, just to clarify, there's nothing you need to configure in order for the Outlook integration that I showed you to work. It'll just automatically work. It might show just a little bit differently, again, depending on which Outlook client you're using. So if you're using what's called the Win32 or sort of the Outlook desktop client versus the web client, you might see the emails render slightly differently, but in general, no, there's nothing you need to do specifically to enable that interactive email notification. Okay.
All right, and as you come back, Steve, feel free to pop your video on. Apparently, it was me. I'm the problem. I couldn't see your video.
Okay. All right. So let's come back here. Let's see. All right, we're going to wrap up. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show real quick is this is an example of the new integration that we announced at Ignite, which is our storyline integration into Teams. Just wanted to show you what this would look like if I'm a person that is following Patty and I wanted to get notifications of when Patty posts her storyline. This is what it's going to start to look like inside of Teams. So you'll notice I get this nice notification here, but also when I get the when the thread renders here inside of Teams, I get this sort of nice dedicated view of the message itself. So I don't have to, what I say is we don't have that sort of Chrome of Engage where you have all the communities here. I can just sort of focus on the storyline message itself, where I can, again, react to it. I can play the video. I can comment on it from here. But this is one of the integrations that we recently announced. There'll be more coming as well. We're continuing to work with the Teams team on deeper integration. So we're going to be bringing communities together in a much more native way inside of Teams. So just wanted to mention this as well. Okay, we're going to close off with analytics and data. And again, we're not going to go super deep on this because we do have a session on this in our masterclass series. I think it's the last one that will go into much greater depth on this. But we know, especially for many of you that are admins, you're at least curious to understand what analytics are available to you. I won't go through this full list, but you can see for those of you that are Microsoft 365 customers, or that those of you that only have the Microsoft 365 licensing, these are the types of reports and analytics that you have access to. These last three are ones that actually this one here, Viva Engage data and user export. This is something that you can do as a network admin to export your data outside of Engage into some CSV files, and you can import it into Power BI or Tableau or whatever reporting tool you might be using. There's also APIs available for you to export data. If you really want to get geeky with it and export that data into some other tool, you can use an API to do. You can use the data export API to do that as well. These last two options leverage our Microsoft 365 Admin Center, so you will have to have either access to the Admin Center or have at least the report reader role in the Admin Center to be able to access those reports. But those are some additional reporting capabilities that are available. For those of you that are Viva CNC or Viva Suite licensed customers, there are a number of additional analytics that help you go much, much deeper into our data. Things like advanced conversation analytics, audience analytics. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're a leader and you're a delegate of a leader, you get things like sentiment analysis. You'll be able to see popular how announcements are trending across your organization, theming and so forth. So campaigns also. So if you're able to run more in-depth campaigns, and we provide analytics specific to those campaigns, how many people you've reached in your campaign, how many people are following your campaign, the reach over a certain period of time in your campaign. So lots of depth available for those of you that are further licensed with Viva CNC around analytics. These are just some screenshots that depict some of what's available. So here's what you can see from community analytics. Again, this is available. The community analytics are part of the Microsoft 365 license. A little bit about data export that I mentioned. Here's the activity reports that are available in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. The usage analytics that are available also in the admin center. This one, by the way, goes into much more depth than just Engage itself. You can see usage analytics across Teams, across Outlook and SharePoint and more. So a lot more in there than just Engage. And then again, like I mentioned, for those of you that are Viva CNC and Suite customers, we have network analytics that allow you to see across the entirety of your network the activity that's happening, how much reach you're having, the sentiment of employees in your network, some of the themes. So we use AI to pull out specific themes from that sentiment. We do an AI summary. We also show some of the conversations that contribute to that particular theme here. So some really nice things that are available on the network analytics, in addition to this last one that I'll close off on around employee retention. This has been a useful metric for some of our customers to really understand, based on the activity that my employees might be having on Engage, how does that, is there any connection to that with employee retention in your organization? So that's really what this metric allows you to do. A lot of our customers are trying to figure out what's the ROI, what's the benefit of my of having this engaged network. So we can start to give you some data points around how Engage helps to connect with employee retention in your organization. We're not naive enough to think that this is the only thing that affects employee retention in your organization. We know there's a lot more that goes into it, but as a data point, some customers are finding this very useful to have as a starting point for conversations with leaders. So just to close off, a bunch of admin related resources here on the screen. Again, this will be available in the blog post that's linked here at the top. We'll go back and we'll take a lot of the great question and answer conversations that you all have created here for us, and we'll add those to that blog post, in addition to some other links that help go into some more depth into some of the areas that we talked about today. We also, and actually, let me see if I can just pop into slide share, or just into PowerPoint Live here real quick, and just so you all can I want you to be able to click the link on this particular resource here. Okay, we just published this this guide from our Microsoft Digital, or our Microsoft IT, essentially, and our corporate communications team, where they've documented, how we've deployed Engage here at Microsoft. So super in-depth guide that we think will be useful to you. In fact, many of the things that we're talking about over the series of the masterclass are things that that our Microsoft Digital and Corp Comms team talk about in this particular guide. So we'll certainly be having other sessions around this, but if you want to download this ebook, I think it's going to be a great resource for you all. So just as far as what to look forward to, the next session that we'll have, Allison, if you could remind me the date on this. I think it's in 2 weeks from today.
February 10th.
February 10th.
February
Thank you very
11th.
much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
February 10th, February 11th for those of you in the other hemisphere. We will be doing a session on community management. So we're going to go deep on thinking about how you set up your communities. Again, a little bit more about roles and responsibilities, but really best practices around community management. And you can see some of the other sessions that are to come. You can use the link at the bottom to sign up for the other sessions. I think what we want to do is, if you get a virtual stamp on all the sessions, I don't know, maybe we'll send you some swag if you get to all the sessions, if we can get that out to folks. But anyway, thank you so much for participating with us today. Oh, one other plug. Some of you are probably very interested in knowing what's happening on our roadmap. So on February 4th, we'll be doing a webinar on our upcoming roadmap. You'll likely see some familiar faces at that session as well, but really encourage you to join us and learn about where we're taking Engage and where our investments are. Obviously, would love your feedback on our roadmap as well when you participate. And then if you happen to be in Las Vegas in May 6th through the 8th for the Microsoft 365 conference, we'd love to see you there. I'm sure folks from our team will be there if you're going to be there in person, would love to say hi. Lots of great sessions we'll have around overall Viva, but specific tracks around corporate communications we're planning as well. So would love to see you if you're there. So thank you so much for joining us today. Please give us feedback on whether this was useful to you or not, things that you'd like to see in future sessions, but we're really happy you all were able to join us today. So thanks. Have a good night, good evening, good day. We'll talk to you again soon.